In today's reflection, I invite you to embark with me on a profound journey, not one across distant lands, but a journey into the layers of our own being, the landscape of the mind and soul where the higher and lower selves dwell. This journey is not only about understanding who we are, but also about unraveling what it means to be truly conscious, to witness the intricate dance between our noblest aspirations and our most basic animal instincts. From the dawn of human history, we have sensed a division within ourselves. There are primal urges that pull us toward immediate satisfaction, comfort, or self-preservation, and then there are calls that beckon us toward deeper meaning, love, and a greater good. This conflict has been described in every culture and age. Yet, what renders this interpersonal drama even possible is not just the existence of two selves, but the presence of consciousness, that mysterious awareness that allows us to perceive, reflect, and choose between different paths, or what makes us human. Let's first reach back into the ancient world, into antiquity, where the seeds of this idea were first sown. The Egyptians saw the human being as composed of many parts, with the soul and body in constant interplay. They understood that it was the conscious soul, what we might call self-awareness, that would make moral judgments and guide our actions in life and even in the afterlife. In the philosophy of ancient Greece, Plato described the soul as a charioteer driving two horses. One horse represents our base urges, the other our noblest qualities. The charioteer, our conscious mind, struggles to guide both horses in harmony, using reason to direct and sometimes restrain the forces hidden deep within us. This metaphor still rings true, as consciousness is not just a passive observer, but an active guide, responsible for the choices that shape our daily lives. Aristotle, Plato's student, shifted the focus slightly, favoring the cultivation of virtues as the way to train the higher self. He spoke of conscious habit, where repeated wise actions create strong character. In both Plato's and Aristotle's thought, it is our conscious awareness, or our ability to reflect on ourselves, and to notice our intentions, that allows us to choose growth over stagnation, virtue over vice. Fast forwarding through history, we see similar insights emerge in other traditions. The Chinese philosophy of yin and yang recognizes that there are opposing energies within us, but that balance and awareness lead to wholeness. The conscious self acts as a mediator, harmonizing these forces rather than allowing one to dominate. To expand, this concept of yin and yang is a foundational principle in Chinese thought that represents the dynamic interplay of dualities in the universe and within ourselves. Yin is often associated with qualities such as darkness, receptivity, stillness, and the feminine, while yang is linked to light, activity, movement, and the masculine. Importantly, yin and yang are not viewed as opposing forces in conflict, but as complementary aspects of a single whole, with each one containing the seed of the other, always in flux and mutual transformation. In human experience, yin and yang can be seen in the balance between rest and action, introspection and expression, gentleness and strength. When these energies are consciously acknowledged and integrated, they create harmony and vitality. The classic symbol, known as the Taijitu, often called the yin-yang symbol, shows a swirling circle of black and white, each containing a dot of the other, visually expressing how these forces are interdependent and perpetually evolving. The philosophy teaches that suffering and disharmony arise when one aspect, whether yin or yang, overpowers or is denied, just as the higher and lower selves in other traditions require conscious mediation. The wise person, in the spirit of Taoism, responds to life by cultivating awareness of these shifting energies and adapting with flexibility and grace. In this way, the conscious mind is not only a mediator, but a harmonizer, seeking not to suppress or judge any part of the self, but to allow all aspects their rightful place in the flow of life. In all these traditions, consciousness is not a mere bystander. Instead, it is the stage manager that is orchestrating the interplay of the higher and lower self. In the modern era, thinkers like Carl Jung offered a new language for this inner dynamic. Jung described the shadow, which is the parts we repress or deny, and the self, the integrated whole that can emerge when we bring conscious awareness to our hidden aspects. He believed that only through conscious effort could we face our shadow, not with fear or hatred, but with compassion and curiosity. Jung saw individuation, which is the process of becoming whole, as a conscious journey, where we shine the light of awareness into the dark corners of our nature, and in doing so, become freer and more authentic. Sigmund Freud, whose work shaped the field of psychology, divided the mind into the id, ego, and superego. The id demands pleasure, the superego demands morality, and the ego, through conscious deliberation, mediates these demands with the reality of the world. Freud's model makes clear that consciousness is the fulcrum upon which the balance of the self rests. Without awareness, we are driven purely by instinct or rigid rules. With it, we become capable of nuanced choice and true moral action. Viktor Frankl, who survived unimaginable suffering, argued that the search for meaning is what lifts us from the lower self to the higher self. He observed that even in the most dire of circumstances, people could choose their attitude, their response, and thus tap into a higher sense of purpose. This act of choosing, of becoming aware of options and selecting one, is the intricate dance of our consciousness. Similarly, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs places self-actualization, meaning the fullest realization of the higher self, at the pinnacle of human motivation, reachable only when we bring conscious intention to bear on our lives. Turning to spiritual traditions, we find that consciousness is often the very ground of transformation. In Buddhism, suffering is seen as the result of clinging and desire. However, there is no way to avoid desire, for even desiring not to desire is in fact a form of desire. So the path to liberation from most desire is mindfulness, or the deep, non-judgmental awareness of our thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Through focused meditation, practitioners observe the rising and falling of their urges, learning to neither suppress nor indulge, but to watch with clarity and compassion. Here, mindfulness is consciousness in action, a gentle but firm guide that allows the higher self, marked by wisdom and compassion, to emerge naturally as the lower self loses its grip upon them. In Hindu philosophy, the distinction between Atman and the ego is central. The Atman, or true self, is pure consciousness, that unconditioned, eternal, and one with the divine. The ego, on the other hand, is the changing self, caught in the web of desires and fears. Practices like yoga and meditation are designed to quiet the restless mind we all suffer from, so the practitioner can rest in pure awareness and recognize their true identity with the higher self. The journey is not about fighting the lower self, but about seeing through its illusions of pleasure until only the light of consciousness remains. In the words of Yeshua, "You are the light of the world." So find the light that is hidden deep within your consciousness and let it shine brightly upon the world. This brings us to Christianity, which addresses the struggle of the two selves in its own way. Paul's writings draw a distinction between the old self, subject to selfishness and sin, and the new self, renewed by the Spirit of love and grace. Consciousness here is experienced as the voice of the conscience, the quiet inner prompt that urges kindness over cruelty, generosity over greed. Yeshua's teachings call his followers to wakefulness, to live not by rote or habit, but by an awareness filled with love. This is not a battle won only once, but a daily practice, a conscious turning toward the higher self in thought, word, and deed. If we gather these insights, a clear picture begins to form, one where consciousness is the seat of our freedom, the space in which the higher and lower selves are noticed, weighed, and chosen. The self is not a fixed thing, but an unfolding process, shaped by the quality and depth of our awareness. Alan Watts, in his explorations of Eastern and Western wisdom, invited us to see the relationship between the higher and lower self not as a war, but as a dance. He challenged the very notion that these selves are separate. It is through consciousness, through clear seeing and relaxed attention, that we realize the interdependence of all our parts. Watts warned against the trap of judging the lower self too harshly. Remember, even the Father forgives all who forgive others. He suggests that real growth comes when we integrate all that we are, making conscious space for our shadow and our light. In his view, enlightenment is not the triumph of one self over another, but the recognition that awareness itself is the true ground of being. When we become present in the here and now, when we observe the world without clinging or aversion, the illusion of separation falls away, and we discover that our truest self is the conscious witness behind all experience. This brings us to a crucial point in our journey. The higher and lower selves are not just roles we play, but patterns that unfold in the light of consciousness. When we react without thought, we are swept along by the lower self. However, when we pause, reflect, and choose, we invite the higher self to lead our choices. The more conscious we are, the more freedom we have, yet not freedom from struggle, but freedom to engage with our true nature, to shape our destiny, and to respond with courage and kindness. So, how do we nurture this consciousness awareness? Well, it begins first with self-inquiry, which is noticing the thoughts and emotions that rise and fall within us, then asking ourselves what we truly want to serve, and being honest about the choices before us. It grows through practices that draw us into the present moment, such as breathing deeply, listening fully, appreciating beauty, and connecting with others in authenticity. It flourishes when we forgive ourselves for our lapses in judgment and recommit to our values, not as an act of willpower, but as a conscious expression of who we wish to become. The journey between the higher and lower self is the journey of becoming conscious. It is the process of waking up again and again to the reality of our own nature. It is not about reaching perfection, but about embracing our humanity in all its complexity. The wisdom of the ages, from Plato's Chariot to Jung's Shadow, from Buddhist mindfulness to Christian love, from the insights of Maslow and Frankl to the gentle humor of Alan Watts, all remind us that we are both many and one, that our destiny is shaped not only by what we experience, but by how we choose to meet it. As we come to the end of our journey, let us remember that consciousness is our greatest gift. It is the light by which we see ourselves in the world. It is the space in which the higher self can guide our actions, and the lower self can be both understood and healed. May we all begin to nurture that awareness while honoring both our shadow and our light, and walk this path of becoming with compassion, curiosity, and hope. If you enjoyed this reflection, please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you would truly like to support me or wish to learn more about humanity's hidden history and Yeshua's secret teachings, you can purchase your copies of Forbidden Genesis, The Untold Story of Man and Forbidden Genesis Part 2, The Secret Books of Yeshua, today. The links are in the description box below. Thank you so much for your time.